Okay, my friends, here we are together. And it is July the 22nd. And July 22nd is a special day for me because it's right before July 23rd. Every time the 23rd appears on the calendar, I get excited because I was born on the 23rd. My late husband was born on the 23rd. 23 is a magic number. So today we're going to change that luck and make 22 our lucky number. So with that, I'm going to begin our meeting, and you have received the agenda for today. But before we start the agenda, I want to tell you something I'm reading because it was so insightful. When James Worst came to a chapter meeting when Judith Harris was our chapter regional president, he gave us this book. And if you're one of the older members, take this book out and read it again. Now, you don't have to read the whole book. Just read, see my stickies? Just go to page 213 and go and read. I think the heart and soul of UNA has always been the chapters. I don't think anybody else felt anything more important than the kind people who belong to the local chapters. I spent a lot of time traveling around to chapters and speaking, and I realized the strength of the chapters and the grassroots people who are part of the chapters are the strength of the UNA. And who do you think said that? Eleanor Roosevelt. And so when you read words from Eleanor Roosevelt, who was our champion for human rights, you begin to see, again, that regardless of what goes on with what party, the UNA stands strong. We are the reason the United Nations is still surrounded by people who believe we can make a difference. And so I just wanted to tell you, if you have this book, pull it out and open up to any page, because there's always something. Eleanor Roosevelt stumps the AAUN in the United Nations, 1953 to 1962. That's quite a long time that she was there. She was a big advocate for the UNA, and I am so delighted that I got to say that. And last but not least, I'm going to also tell you something. I was on a Zoom call the other day, and the speaker said, "Have you read the UN Charter lately? Do you know that if we followed the UN Charter, we'd have peace on the planet?" And so she started to read it. And then I wanted to read something to you, which I know you've heard 100 times, but I want to repeat it. "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice, now 3 times almost in our lifetime, has brought untold sorrow to mankind. And to these ends," and I'm going to go to paragraph 2, "to practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another as good neighbors, and to unite our strength to maintain international peace and security, and to ensure by the acceptance of the principles and institutions of method, the armed forces shall not be used save in the common interest, and employ international machinery for the promotion of the economic and social advancement of all people." That's quite a statement. That's right in the first 2 paragraphs. And then she went on and said, you have to read chapter 6. Chapter 6 tells you the purposes of the United Nations to maintain international peace and security, and to that end, to take effective collective measures for the prevention and the removal of threats to war. And as I read these words, I remember the United Nations is why we are so strong, the United Nations associations. And as I look around, I see people who have given so much to the United Nations associations. And so today I'm going to start not with our agenda. We'll do that in a minute. I'm going to start with 2 awardees. I just have to say this because I feel so proud of Judith Harris, who was me prior to, I'm with you, Mel. Judith Harris, who was the president of our UNA Southern California division, who received, and this is a very big award. You don't get to have this award unless you can match all the criteria that they judge a person by. She received the Arnold Goodman Lifetime Achievement Award Imagine the Lifetime Achievement Award. And so, Judith, I know you weren't in Washington to receive this award. So would you just give us a couple of words of gratitude? And we have so much gratitude for you. Judith Harris, without further ado.
Wow. Thank you. First of all, thank you to everyone I've worked with. I presented a 4-minute speech, and I was able to name a few of you who are, some of you are on this call right now. And I can say I was stunned when I got the email from the national office. I was kind of in shock. I couldn't go to Washington, but I did record the speech, and it was presented. I never in a billion years would have expected this, or I don't know, it's just such an honor. I am so humbled. And in my speech, I did talk a lot about the people that I worked with, that I hold Mal Boynton personally responsible for this, because Mal encouraged me from the first time I met him. Mal is the one who encouraged me to run for division president, and supported me as in many, many ways. So thank you, Mel, over the years, going way, way back. And it's just been the joy of my life to be involved with such amazing people and to get to help support the UN. What more could I ask for? So thank you all for all your support and kindness over the years. Many, I think I've been a member 22 years.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We're proud of you.
Thank you.
And Judith, you do deserve this award. You can look around and say, I helped that chapter get started. I helped that chapter get started. I gave them the wherewithal to believe they could do it. And so, Judith, without further ado, your whole speech will be in the next newsletter. We will put it in so people can listen to it. And then we will have this is amazing. Our chapters are really powerful. Now we have the chapter of the year, and that's David Tuckman. David Tuckman, were you surprised when you got the chapter of the year? That's a big deal, and we have a lot of chapters. And so, David, give us a couple minutes of your pride and joy, your chapter that Jenny is a member of, and so many of the luminaries like Marcia Hunt, like I can't even remember all that. Your chapter has had more dignitaries than any other chapter, but your work has been stellar. Thank you. Give us a minute or two, please.
Well, I would say we are actually America's first chapter. We were actually founded as the American Association for the UN, where we pushed to actually create a United Nations. Marcia Hunt was actually mentored by Eleanor Roosevelt, if you look at this amazing history. And then she advocated for refugee resettlement post-World War II. So we have a long tradition. We had, including Lynn Harris Hicks, whose mother was the first female delegate to the UN for the first session in San Francisco, where she sat on her lap during that session. So it's amazing how many people in our chapter helped to create what is now the present day UNA USA from the very beginnings. So during the time we got honored at the national meeting, I, like Judith, couldn't make it in person, but gave a wonderful speech that was prepared in advance. We also honored the legacy of Lynn Harris Hicks and Marcia Hunt, who, as you know, recently passed away not too long before the chapter of the year. But I know up in heaven, they're watching over us, and they are very proud of the work they have done, their legacy that helped make us the chapter that we are. I think it's a true testament to the leaders for their effort, our dedication, and that passion that we all have. If you look at Jeannie Hatfield, she was the head of the Regional Council Organization as president of our partner agency for many years. I had served on the national board as the National Young Professionals Chair and Division Young Professionals Chair a few years prior. So all of our chapter members who are leaders have also served a division or regional or national. We've all just had that dedication and that passion. to support the work of the UN through the UNA. I can think of no better organization than the UNA USA to really highlight the work of the UN and to push to make sure that America and the world lives up to the ideals of the UN.
That's wonderful. And bless you and thank you. And thank you for making our division so proud. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, I must tell you, there's a very special person on this call, and then I'm going to go to the approval of the agenda. His name is Shab. Shab is a member because of us putting together the beautiful breakfast that we had. And Shab and his wife came and they were part of the program honoring Shelter Box. Shab at that minute joined the UNA Santa Barbara Southern California division. And Shab, I am so proud you're here. Give us 2 words about what, and he's a member of the Rotary Action Group for World Peace. Give us a couple of minutes, Shab, of your passion. He was our keynote speaker too.
Well,
Shab.
Barbara, thank you very much. I am honored and privileged to be among such beautiful, kind people on this call, and I hear all about our chapter. I think, the work we do in the world to keep peace and harmony is really, if it wasn't for us and other organizations, they do the same thing to ease the suffering and keep peace and harmony. I think 1/3 of the world will suffer, through malnutrition or through conflict or through other things in the world. So I want to thank every single one of you for all the kindness that you do and every act of kindness that you do to keep peace and help people around the world. And to do that, we meet also on a monthly basis just to help people from around the world to get together. And I see the thing above you is peace through service. And that's what we do. We probably cannot control the wars but we can make some noise about it and some awareness about it, but we can always serve others and make them comfortable in life, and that's peace in itself. So thank you again, and I'm honored to belong to this great organization. Thank you.
Thank you. When you put Rotary together with the United Nations Associations, what a power team we have to bring peace and harmony to our world. Now, Shab is a little bit modest, and he didn't tell you that he's gotten more global grants from Rotary for service above self than any other, I think, Rotary club in the world. And he also is one of those men that doesn't just talk. He went to Ukraine and he brought back pictures and he showed us the devastation and the trauma in Ukraine. His wife went with him, and then they went to Poland and she's a dentist and gave free dental care to the people who have been evacuated, who have nothing anymore. And so, when I say these words, they're from my heart, a heart of love and appreciation. So with that, I thank all of you. I look around. Dr. Gupta, I see all of you, and I say we are so lucky that we are able to have this kind of freedom of speech and freedom of work. So with that, I'm going to ask you to look at your agenda. We're going to have the approval of the agenda for today and officer reports, national updates, and the regional reps are not going to be here, so we'll skip that because Patina's on an airplane and the reporter named Barry is in Spain. And I just called Barry and said, Barry, are you going to be on today? No, I'm in Spain. I said, well, enjoy. And then our special guest speaker, Helen Peacock, is who in the upper left-hand corner. And wait till you hear the talk that she does today. And so I want you to stay with us for the whole meeting. I'm going to try to make it 2 hours and maybe even less because I have to go swimming and the swimming pool closes at 4. So I got to get going. So there's a purpose. I have to do the work that I need to keep my body healthy. Today I was talking to somebody in South Africa and they were so lethargic. And she said, my husband's lethargic. I said, okay, I want y'all to get some B complex. B complex gets that lethargy right in the neck and you're going to get your energy back. So if you are feeling lethargic, get on some B vitamins and you will find out that that's what the doctor should be recommended. Okay, my friends. So with that, do you agree that this is a good an agenda that what we know? Anything you want to add to the agenda, please? Mel, may I take a moment to have you approve the agenda? Everybody approve of the agenda? Okay, that's enough. We don't have to do any more than that. All right. Minutes. We had the minutes, and you know the minutes came from a meeting long time ago. I hope you read them, because when you read them, you see all the work we're doing. Is there any changes to the minutes from our last global board meeting? Hearing none, I read them carefully. I had no changes. That Crystal cannot be here. She's working. She's our secretary, and she is so accurate, right? I look at Sharon, I say, right, Sharon, that accurate Krista. If we can get her away from her job, she could do more, but she has to earn a living. So she's not here today. But with that, I need a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I so move.
Okay, and it looks like Mel has seconded. Judith Harris has approved the minutes from our last meeting, and Mel has seconded it. All right, with that, is our treasurer here today? If you are, raise your hand. I called you earlier to make sure you were here, but I don't know if you are. Well, if you are, and we didn't do the treasurer's report, I kind of know where we are, and we're doing great. We have more money in the treasury than we've had in all the other years that I've been here. So we're doing something right. Maybe it's because we're investing in things that, like Wedbush, that makes money for us while we sleep. Program, who is in charge of programs these days? Jenny, is that you? Oh, no, that's Bettina. She's not here today. Well, see how fast we're going through this meeting? Young professional is our young professional person here today. All right. Advocacy, Mel,
Sure.
thank you for showing up.
You bet. And make sure that at every one of our meetings, you have asked people to take out their phones and Google the words or the letters UNA, USA. So do that now. Pick up your phone, Google UNA, USA, and it's going to take you to the website. So go to unausa.org, and it says Global Leadership Begins with Us. And then you go down and we have lovely pictures of us in Washington. Some of you have had the fun of being there. If you get the chance, do it in the future. And the first red button says, Take a Stand with Us, right there on your phone. And then, so you hit Take a Stand with Us right now. And it opens it up and it says, Tell Congress to invest in the UN in fiscal 24. This is very important. The budget negotiations are going on right now. Last week, this next week, the House has passed a bill that's going to cut the UN contributions. The Senate has a chance to pass a full bill recommended by the Biden administration, which would fully support the UN. And then they'll go to conference committee. And depending on who the conferees are, we might get the whole budget back. So it's really important that we tell our senators and our Congress members that we support the UN budget. So you put your information in there. If you've done this before, it'll automatically populate. And then it will identify you by zip code, and it goes to your senators and your representative. And you hit the go button, send. That's it. 2 minutes, and you've performed advocacy at your chapter meeting. It's powerful. These messages really tell the staff that people out there among the constituents care. And you can do this at every one of your chapter meetings. I hope you will. The timing on this budget measure is very important. If you've just done this as a group before, you can quickly move down the agenda to the environment, women's issues, race matters, support Ukraine. You can send multiple messages, so if you've got time to do that, but at least put this advocacy as part of your chapter meetings, and that's my report.
Wonderful. You know, Judith Harris speaks a lot to the college students. We have college chapters, and I invited the college chapters. Mel, you'll get a kick out of that because Mel's been helping me identify our college chapters in our community college chapters. And so anyway, with that, We've been having such good luck, and Judith has always asked before COVID to speak to the college chapters. And she always says, take out your iPhone and do exactly what Mel just now said. It's a simple process and it's so effortless, and we really do count. I've heard reports that they have mentioned that our advocacy is one of the strongest advocacies of any of the groups going around. So I'm proud of you, Mel. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to go to membership. Is there any report on membership today? Is there anybody who has a report on membership? Because I can't remember. Judith, who was it? Jenny that was doing membership? See, we'll figure it out. Anyway, if you have
Hi,
membership.
Barbara.
Yes.
I just want to show you, look at my screen. Our cute little peace puppy, Mai, has joined us.
Well, that's really cool. You have a peace puppy. Did you bring it to our breakfast that day?
I believe I did.
Yeah, I thought I met him before. Okay, we got that going. And we really want to save time for our chapters updates. So that's why I'm not worried about these things. Resource development, anybody have them report on resource development? And that leads us.
Barbara, I don't. This is Ginny, but I do want to add something to what Mel just said
Thanks,
about
Jenny. Jenny is in the chapter that just got the chapter of the year with David. Okay, Jenny, you're on.
Okay, I just wanted to add something to what Mel said about advocacy. Excuse me. Yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the Equal Rights Amendment. It's when Alice Paul and her colleague penned it. And our AAUW branch had a celebration of that, honoring the foremothers who actually carried that out, and all of the women from that point to now who are trying to get that inscribed into the US Constitution. So when you're doing your advocacy, telling your members of Congress to vote for the resolutions that are now available, there are two of them. One that's been put forth in January of this year, which would do away with the time limit on ratification, which was basically in the preamble and not in the actual text of the amendment. And the other, it was introduced last week by Senator Gillibrand, which would basically just ask the archivist to go ahead and certify it, because it according to Article 5 of the Constitution, it has met what it requires. It has passed, been ratified by 38 states, and it was passed by the Congress. So both of those attempts are out there, and we need all the help we can get. And hopefully, maybe in my lifetime, it might become a reality.
Oh, that's wonderful, Jenny. Jenny is one of those people who doesn't just talk, she does it. I remember a meeting that we had in Pasadena, and Jenny was there handing out award certificates to all of our members who had been performing beyond the call of duty. And I so appreciate you, Jenny. You're one of my heroes, personal mentors, because of what you've done. Now I'm going to go down to the different chapters unless there's any business I have forgotten to do. Hearing none, we're going to go to the chapters. Now I see Dr. Gupta. Dr. Gupta is one of the chapters in Long Beach that our wonderful Judith Harris helped start. Dr. Gupta, would you give us a chapter report for Long Beach, please?
Yes, I will. Before I give my chapter report, I have a special thanks for Judith Harris. She's the one who encouraged me, and she's the one who helped me in starting the Long Beach chapter. So she's my mentor. So thank you very much, mentor. I really appreciate your help. And congratulations again.
Oh,
It
thank
was nice to see you getting that kind of award, you know. Okay, this year, but I think I gave the report last time, but since then, we already arranged 2 functions and we are planning to do 2 more. First, we arranged the beach cleaning, which was on April 30. It was done on Cherry Juniper Beach in Long Beach, and it was attended by 40 to 45 people. So we had a good turnout, so we can save our environment. The second, we did the Women's Leadership Summit of 2023 award, which was on June 17th. We awarded 7 women from different fields and from different cultures, who were accomplished women and who were the role model for young women and girls. So that we just finished on June 17th. The next one is our 10,000 meal donation and packaging. We package 10,000 meal and send all over the world for needy children. And that will be on September 2nd. The fourth one will be UN Day and World Peace Day, which we are planning to do somewhere around end of September or first week of October. And we are planning to invite all the peace leaders of the world. So we are still thinking whether we should do a Zoom meeting or in person. In person, everybody has difficulty in coming from long distance. So most probably we'll do Zoom meeting. So that is our report for this year. We do believe in zero hunger. So we are actually not talking only. We are actually functioning and doing something about it. And same thing about the environment, that we are trying to really help in our environment also.
Dr.
So thank
Gupta,
you. Thank you
I
very
so appreciate your energy and I so appreciate your meetings. I met Paula Garb at one of your meetings. She was your speaker and I have remained friends with her just because she's working so hard. She has family in Russia and she has been a mediator trying to bring,
Yes.
and all because of you, because of your chapter. And she's on peacepodcast.org. And when you listen to her, you will understand how important your chapter is. So God bless you and thank you. I want to go to Orange County. You're welcome. Orange County, I would like to have Jane, who is going to take David's place right now and give us an Orange County report. Jane Harris, I think is your last name. Let me see.
Herring, close.
ING. Thank you, Jane. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I just found out about doing this today, so I'm not quite sure what the usual standard protocol is, but I can just tell you that we're meeting monthly. Dave is doing all his local 2030 stuff and just networking like crazy through Orange County. We're very active, very vocal. People are seeing us out there doing the work. Right now, we are focused on upcoming UN Day celebration which will be at Chapman University. And then we're meeting on Tuesday with the SoCal University's Race, Ethnicity, and Human Rights Department to start discussions on Human Rights Day celebration in December. So that's the majority of what we're working on. And I'm looking forward to hearing what all you are doing.
That is so cool. She is the secretary for the Orange County chapter. And David has done more for the environment, more for Orange County. And he told me a little secret. He said, get a lot of Republicans in your chapter because they do things. And so that's his little secret. And I shared it. Don't tell him I told you. But he said they're used to doing things. All right. With that, Bianca, are you on today, Bianca Whittier chapter?
Oh.
Bianca is my pal. Bianca, please.
Oh, there you go. Am I able? Are you guys able to hear me? I'm sorry. Oh,
On Bianca.
oh, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Great. We're loving you.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm using my phone. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's nice to see you all here and also to meet some new faces. So I'm Bianca. I'm the president of the Whittier chapter out here, and I believe John is on. So hopefully, John, if you could jump in case if I missed anything. So yeah, UN Day's coming up. We're super excited and thrilled. And we're actually in a district of two, as Mel mentioned about advocacy. So in our last chapter meeting with the board, we're revamping and we're going to be focusing on 3 areas of advocacy, and then try to incorporate those 3 into our UN Day programming. And then also we're looking at Earth Day of next year and teaming up with the local sanitation district actually out here. They hosted a big event this year. And so we're thinking of partnering them, which is very also important too, to put it out there for everybody. And it's great for networking purposes too, for each of us, but also to partner in local events that are out there, and we could also be that extra help of a push, what else? I think that's it for now, from us. But looking forward to seeing what everyone is doing, and hope everyone's doing well and beating the heat too, also right now, as we see what's going on here locally and also globally too. And yeah, so feel free to definitely ping me, and all that good stuff. So feel free, John, if you want to hop in, but I'll yield back my time to you, Barbara.
Thank you. Bianca is our chair of nominations. You know, nominations will be taking place at the end of December, November, December for the new year. So be thinking, is there something you have a desire to do that you would like us to vote for you? So let us know, and Bianca and I will get back in touch with you for nominations. My term is 2 years, and my term ends this end of December. So we'll see if anybody wants to take my place, or if I just get to stay in this position for another 2 years as Barry did. We'll find out. And then with that, I want to go straight to Santa Barbara chapter, which is a tri-county, San Luis Obispo through Ventura County. Sharon Byrne, our president. Sharon, give us a few words about our Santa Barbara chapter. One of the things I'm going to tell you about Santa Barbara is we are an international city of peace. And if you are not an international city of peace yet, Sharon is the reason we're doing so much with it, and the reason that we are one. Go to unasb.org. Everything is outlined for you, and you can join and become an international city of peace. We are number 323, and they're almost at 300 now, so you better get on board. Okay, 400, I meant. Sharon Byrne, please.
Okay, thank you, Barbara, for that amazing introduction. Very inspiring to be with you all on this beautiful Saturday. I'm just going to give you a couple of quick updates from our end on Tuesday at 5:30. First of all, you're welcome to join us. It's an open invite to everyone. We're going to have this fantastic speaker. She's her name's Elsa Granados. She runs an organization here that's formerly known as the Rape Crisis Center, now known as Standing Together to End Sexual Assault. She gets a call in the middle of last year from the government of Spain, who has got a very progressive government, likely to be tossed out, unfortunately, tomorrow in the national elections. But they've been very busily pursuing a raft of women's rights laws that most of us would just really drool for. I mean, they're just drool worthy, and we don't have them in the United States. So they had been dealing very much with a femicide problem and violence against women problem. And Spanish feministas have been standing very firmly with their sisters in Latin and South America against femicide and violence against women. So they call Elsa and say, hey, we need your help. We've gotten some funding. We have not the first rape crisis center in Spain. We have nowhere for women to go who are having, experiencing crisis from being raped. And we have a high rate of sexual violence that they're turning around with a lot of these women's rights laws, which it's a stunning story. So Elsa goes and helps them open 53 of them across the country, which is pretty amazing. So for us, this is a huge deal because we do the Santa Barbara Peace Prize, UNA Peace Prize here. And it's awarded annually in September on the International Day of Peace to people who are doing amazing things in the world, either in the area of human rights, peace building, peacemaking, or advancing infrastructure that's needed for like clean water systems, for example. So those are the categories that we look at. So we got a strong contender here, right, for the Human Rights Prize, and we're extremely excited about that. So she's going to talk to us Tuesday at 5:30 on Zoom. You are all welcome to listen in. All are welcome. We'd love to have you and get a look at her and ask her questions about how did she come to the Spanish government's attention. But it's thrilling for us to see one of our hometown girls really, being an international hero and helping out women way across the ocean and across the world. So very exciting stuff. And I also want to share with you, if this is interesting to you, I really appreciate you bringing up the taking a stand with the UN. Obviously, the June meetings with Congress, really important work. We stay in Santa Barbara, we stay in close contact with Senator Alex Padilla and our Congressman Salud Carbajal. And so they get lots of emails from us, and we get lots of responses of, yes, they're going to do the right thing by the UN, and we want to make sure of that. If you're interested in human rights, I'm going to let my chapter know this. I recently got the chance to take a course from the International Institute of Human Rights. It cost me about $100. They walk you through in very strong detail the International Declaration of Human Rights, right? That Eleanor Roosevelt got passed, signed in 1947. It's well worth doing it. It took me about 8 hours to finish the course. One of our chapter members, her organization created the videos for this course. So Barbara and I had already seen some of them, but it was really, really good refresher, really get you very in depth. You probably know most of the international human rights laws were derived after the International Declaration of Human Rights, right? So this is a great document to get really familiar with. It might be a fun exercise for the chapter to do with you, right, of taking the course. You will be certified as an international human rights consultant, and I think it's always a good thing to have that in your bailiwick, right, to do things. And Barbara and I had a good conversation this morning. I want to make sure, especially for some of the younger people on this call, you know, I've been very blessed that in the work that I've gotten to do with the Santa Barbara chapter, I've gotten to have some tremendous experiences, such as being a delegate to the UN Conference on the Status of Women in New York, right? And, you know, they put you in a UN badge and you go to 8 kajillion conferences and you meet amazing people and you learn a lot about what is going on around the world with women's rights. But I also got to be a delegate to Climate Forum. I got to attend NATO sessions last week, you know, with Biden giving his speech in NATO. Now I got to do it on Zoom, which was great. And so I want to make sure you understand that, you know, being part of the United Nations Association really can open some doors to you. And Barbara knows I'm about to start a new position with a women's rights firm here in the United States that's going now. It's a national firm and they're going to go international as well. And that door got open to me from some of the work that I've done with UNA USA and in the Santa Barbara chapter. So for people that are interested in getting more engaged directly with the UN and being able to attend some of these conferences and being able to even make a career out of this, this is a great place to be. And I've been very grateful when Barbara was our chapter president. Pretty much her attitude was, you want to do something, go do it, go make it happen. You know, she never said no to a good idea. And I see some of that creativity around the other chapters too, that, you know, lots of people are doing very different things, but I want to encourage that and really kind of keep that fire alive, because when you go to some of these conferences, you really do see how it will take all of us to help the world, right? That whatever you care about, whether it's peace, whether it's human rights, you know, no one's contribution is too small. So do not think that you don't matter and that you can't do something. And so I just wanted to make that clear, and that to me, the UNA USA is a great gateway into interacting more with the UN, getting involved more with the work of the UN, and of course, bringing the work of the UN to your own community. Thank you, Barbara, for giving me the opportunity to talk. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. You know, Sharon demonstrates courage over comfort. The things that Sharon has done in our chapter would blow anybody's mind, from going down into homeless camps and saying, why are you here? What do you need to be unhomed or on home now? Because you're unhomed now. The things that Sharon has done, and Sharon, I hope you'll put in the chat how to attend that course. I saw lots of people trying to take notes as you were talking. They want to take the course, put that in, put in how we can become part of the solution to some of the issues that you're talking about, and anything else you think we need. So be sure you take those 3 little dots at the bottom and keep the chat. The chat is really powerful. And that is just amazing. Sharon is going to be, this is what we do. We're so busy, we can't even imagine fitting in the UNA, but we do it. Now, Sharon is taking on a brand new position. It's worldwide, and she's going to do it like you would not believe. Again, courage over comfort. And I am so proud of her. And I really love saying, if you want to have an idea, go do it. How do you think we got the Peace Prize in Santa Barbara? We give an annual Peace Prize for the people who are working on the local for the global. We have the most incredible, we gave Shelter Box the Peace Prize last year, our biggest attend, a fundraiser that made money because we had it in a restaurant with a good bar. And when you have a good bar, you can ask for a lot of money, and we did, and we got it. And if they didn't register on time, we charged them full price. We said it's $375. You have to pay that. And they did. And then we had money in our account so that we could do the wild things Sharon decided, and it was fabulous. And so with that, I give you, don't accept no, go and use the word, yes, can you help? All right, with that, I'm going to go to Pasadena. And I think that's our wonderful Judith Harris will do the report today, who has been president of Pasadena for many, many years and now going to give the report.
I am very happy to be giving the report from our new president this year, Ann Diederich. She is in Europe right now, but she sent me her report. She's doing a fantastic job. We have 4 student interns who are working on outreach and communications. We will be returning to in-person meetings in August. We're preparing for fall events for UN Day and Human Rights Day. And we're hoping to participate in Global Goals Week and host UN Day later in the year with humanitarian Cambodian genocide survivor Arn Chorn Pond, and plan to collaborate again for Human Rights Day with the mayor of Pasadena. And I thought that a campus chapter student might be attending today, but it looks like she isn't. But there's an active, very active chapter at a school in Pasadena.
That's wonderful.
We're working with them.
And you know, many times we've had our monthly, when we didn't have COVID, we would go down to Pasadena and Judith and Jenny would greet us and we'd have these fabulous meetings. Anything else, Judith Harris?
I think that's all for Pasadena right now. Thank you.
And congratulations again, very well deserved. You have been such a hero for me. San Fernando Valley, do we have someone here to do a report from San Fernando? Kibokai, are you here today?
Kibukili is Pomona Valley.
Oh, sorry, I'm doing Pomona Valley now. Pomona Valley, are you there today? Let me see if she's in our list.
Kibukili isn't here, but I'll try to be a substitute.
Thank you.
She's traveling for her double job. She's holding down a associate dean of student affairs and vice president for student affairs at her college here in Claremont. The Pomona Valley chapter meets in Claremont most of the time, and our June meeting featured our 3 essay contest winners and a report from the national meeting, the summit. And so we had helped sponsor a student attendee at the summit, and she reported. And 3 of our high school students completed their essay on how is the United Nations effective with issues in the world in very creative ways. It was amazing. Many of them were there with their teachers and their families, and they received $1,000 in prize money for their high school essays. It's amazing how $1,000 will motivate high schoolers to write very good essays. And we were at the 4th of July parade. Most of us have a 4th of July parade somewhere near us. And I think we've been traditionally making good use of that to have at the community organization tent area. And we had a very good turnout. We had a big map of the world and stick pins that we allowed people to sort of put their country of origin or where their families had come from around the world. And we had a very nicely decorated map and a very active participation at our 4th of July event. Of course, coming up is UN Day, and we've been back in-person meeting since January of this year. So we offer a Zoom option. So that's working pretty well. So we're happy with what's going on, and we really appreciate people joining with us when they can and coming by Zoom when they can't. And it's been an exciting year so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel, for doing such an accurate report. Mel is the reason I'm chair of this, or president, whatever I'm called, because Mel said, don't you think it's your turn? And I said, really? And then I said, okay. And when I said yes, I put my whole heart in it, and I love it. I love being with you monthly or bi-monthly.
Well, now that you've mentioned it, nominations are going to be coming up. And by recent tradition, presidents serve a second term of 2 more years. So just saying it out there because it could happen.
Okay,
Thank
Mel.
you.
Thank you, Mel. That's why Judith got that award. Mel said, can't you do that too, Judith? And she would say yes, and yes is a good word. I always say yes with enthusiasm and no with, sorry, I can't do that right now, but I do say yes with enthusiasm. Thank you, Mel. Appreciate that. Did we have anybody from our campus chapters? I want to make sure I do not take any time away from you. I don't know if any campus chapters joined us, but I told them I would send them the video of our meeting because I want to get more involved and I want to have a Zoom meeting with our campus chapters. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go to San Diego, and I know Bettina is on a plane.
No, go to San Fernando Valley.
San Fernando Valley, you're on.
Thank you, Barbara. This is David, San Fernando Valley Chapter President. We're very proud to support the Rotary Division Concert for Peace from Harm to Harmony by providing free performers with the efforts of our Vice President, Soraya Fella, who's working with Barry Simon. Also, our chapter board and planning committee are having a joint meeting at 7:30 on Monday to plan upcoming events for the next coming months of 2023. Some of our past events recently are the Voice of America journalist, Sajwan Kajo, who was able to report on the work of relief efforts from the earthquake affecting Syria and Turkey, as well as the upcoming update on the war in Ukraine and the effects on the Ukrainian people, and what relief efforts and organizations like Red Cross are doing in that region of the world. We also had some presentations from a panelist of Iranian women rights activists about their role in advocating for women's equality throughout that region of the world as well. I also want to take this moment to also thank all of our chapter leaders for their dedication, passion, and their effort to help make our chapter the chapter of the year, chapter of excellence for 2023, through supporting the vital work of the UN. This concludes my brief report for San Fernando Valley chapter.
Thank you. And that's why you got that award for the chapter of the year. Think of all the things you have been doing and continue to do, David. I think you're one of our longest termed presidents we've had, but we're so proud of you. Now, I want to know if there's anybody from the Inland Empire. Ike, are you here today? I didn't see your name in the list. And then Warsha had to leave. So I think we're going to skip inland and we'll do them again another time. Los Angeles, are you here?
Hi, this is Shruti, the president of Los Angeles chapter. I'm sorry I'm on location right now, so I can't come on camera. Yeah, I'd like to just give our quick update from Los Angeles side. So as you all know, we've had a change in leadership. So I'm the new president taking over from Varsha. And right now we are building a new board here in Los Angeles, which is really exciting because we're taking from different industries and communities. Myself and my vice president, Jennifer Barrera, we attended the UNA summit in Washington, D.C., which was really fabulous. We took a lot of really great pictures, met with Sarah Jacobs, one of the congresswomen that Bettina had set up for us on Capitol Hill. So there was a lot of really amazing outcomes from there. And also we have started an internship program in Los Angeles, and we have one of our interns here on the call, Alicia Thomas. So we're just really excited to branch out and have more youth involved with our chapter. We have some plans for UN Day, including working with some space initiatives. I see Pasadena is on, and one of the partnerships we were pursuing was with JPL in Pasadena. So I'd love to, coordinate with your chapter and see maybe if you'd be interested in joining us, in that effort. And other than that, you know, we're just building. We have a lot of exciting programs that we'll talk about next time that are in the works right now.
That's fantastic. And I love having interns. Oh my God, what would I have done without my interns? One of our interns has now gone on to Washington, working with the human rights and advocacy. I mean, you know, the United Nations, if you're really interested in doing something in the world, is a really good starting point, even if you're old like me, because you can do so much and you get the world to pay attention. Now, Nancy Martin serves in Santa Barbara on the Human Rights Council. I think it's called that. Human Rights Affinity Group, right? That's what it's called. Nancy Martin, I think I saw you. Are you on today? I'd like you to do something for Human Rights Affinity.
Yeah, I do want to say something. Thank you.
Sure.
We
also-
have a program. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
We hear you fine.
Okay, we have a program on the 30th, and it's between the Human Rights Affinity Group and the Women's Affinity Group. And so it's T and actually my co-chair, Kate Mallory, are working together, and it's about trafficking, human trafficking. And there are 6 speakers. There are lived experience experts. There's a Minnesota activist, a national advocate, and an award-winning filmmaker. So there are a number of speakers who are going to be on a panel, and lots of questions and answers. It's the 30th at 4 o'clock our time, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And I put it in the Southern California announcements on Slack, and it's also in the announcements on Slack under announcements, and also the affinity group. And maybe I can send a flyer if you could send that out.
That would be great. And also, Nancy, put in the chat our Slack. All we have to do to go to Slack is literally go to Slack, right?
Right. Yeah. And
Go ahead.
Barry probably could tell you more. I see Barry posting in there too. And
Barry,
Judith goes on Slack. There aren't a lot of people that I see on Slack, but
Really, Slack is a way to go. It is. I just did a course with Joshua and Nancy, and it's amazing what you can do on Slack, but you have to be there. You just can't assume that it's happening without you. So Nancy, anything else? And thank you for that report.
that's the main thing. If people join us for the trafficking program, that would be great on the 30th. And then, the Human Rights Council is finishing their second meeting of the year. And so there will be a fireside chat. We don't have the date yet, but it will probably be the end of July.
Okay, thank you so much.
Barbara, so sorry to interrupt. This is Shruti from Los Angeles.
Shruti.
I just wanted to introduce 2 of my members that are on our call that are here.
Go for it.
Yeah. So because I want you all to become familiar with LA as we continue to build. So we have Jennifer Barrero, who's our Vice President of Advocacy. She was attending in Washington, D.C., the UNA Summit, and Alicia Thomas, our intern. So they can both say something and just introduce themselves right now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Shruti. Yeah, so it's great to connect with everyone. Sorry, I'm not on camera this time, but as Shruti mentioned, my name is Jennifer Barrero. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy, and I'm so excited about all the programs that Shruti mentioned as far as potential partnerships with the Office of Outer Space and getting our programming for UN Day and just being more connected with the other SoCal groups. So very excited to be here and to get more interns and more youth involved.
Thank you,
Nice to meet
Jennifer.
everyone.
Yes, Jennifer, we say yes. San Diego, did anybody come from San Diego? Bettina is in La Plaine, as I said. Okay.
And
Go ahead.
I'll also have Alicia, our intern, say something too.
All
because-
right, Lisa,
yeah.
you get to take over. You get to say something. We love you. Go ahead.
Hi, so I literally just joined as an intern like this past week, so I'm very, very new, but I'm currently an undergraduate student studying political science, English, and legal studies on the pre-law track, and I love everything related to international relations, so having this opportunity and learning what all of the chapters are doing is so inspiring to hear.
Well, you know, that's the reason why we have these meetings that are very open. The inspiration that comes from the members are what count. And that's how we keep the ball rolling in the right direction for human rights, women's rights, men's rights, all rights, the right to be at peace and the right to end war. And it's kind of like we're building up to our speaker now, because there is a reason that we believe that the impossible is possible. Yesterday, when I was on the phone with somebody, she was, and I don't know if they've made it or not. I sure hope they are going to make it, because she said, somebody told me impossible is really I''am possible. I'm possible. And when she said that, it was like it opened up the vehicle for what I believe, that anything is possible. And as you're going to hear from Helen Peacock, our speaker today, you're going to hear that it boils down to, you have to believe the impossible is not something that can't happen. You really have to see the impossible as I'm possible. And I have seen Sharon operate from courage over comfort. I have operated from courage over comfort so many times. And Helen Peacock, our speaker today, from the Rotary Action Group for Peace, has created a way for us as a Canadian peace activist and speaker. She's presented on topics of world peace to over 50 groups from around the world. She is the founder of Pivot to Peace, a local peace group in Canada and Ontario, a Rotarian, a member of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And I keep seeing this beautiful face, and that's not me, but that's, I wish I had that beautiful complexion that you're seeing on your screen right now. So I'm going to go back to gallery view for just a moment. And then when I go to speaker view, I think Helen will be on. But you know, she was a civil society observer at the United Nations for the 10th Nuclear Non-Proliferation Review Conference in New York City. She wore a little round circle. And that little round circle, everybody wore, because we were able to say, and I'll let her tell you what we were able to say, how we began to understand ending war 101 is a possibility. And it's only in 6 hours you're going to find out how. Our wonderful Sharon took an 8-hour course for human rights, but we're going to teach you. Well, now let Helen tell you more. Helen, it's your turn. I'm now going to try to go to speaker view and put you on. Helen, if you say something, I think you'll be there.
Can you let me screen share, please, Barbara?
Absolutely. And this is
before I go, everybody, what a great meeting. I'm so honored that I was able to be here at the meeting. I can't join any chapters because I'm in Canada, but truly it was wonderful to hear what everybody is doing. And the topic I'm going to talk on is world peace, pipe dream or possibility. And when I say world peace, I mean a world in which war is not used as a means of resolving conflict. I don't mean a world without conflict. I mean a world without war. And so I'm curious, before I go into my presentation, how many of you believe that it is truly possible? It's been 75 years since the UN was formed to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. So how many of you believe it's truly possible to end the use of war as a means of resolving conflict? Okay, and I see a few hands. And how many of you think it's a pipe dream? I'm dreaming in Technicolor. I'm just like completely on drugs. And I don't see any hands. Okay, so we've got some people on the fence. I will say typically when I talk about this, about 2/3 are pretty adamant that I'm on drugs. And the other 1/3 are open to the possibility. So let me just screen share. and move this out of the way for me. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to start with a brief story, and this is a story from my life. And the year was 1969. Now, I know a lot of you weren't born in 1969, but I was 18. And this is a story about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. My brother and I had decided to hitchhike from Nairobi, Kenya to Kampala, Uganda to visit a school friend. And I'd done second year university at the University of Nairobi. We knew our way around East Africa. So this was no big deal. And we did the hitchhiking. We had a wonderful time. We met up with our friend Shawkat. And that night, as I was sleeping, I heard firecrackers, maybe a celebration. I wasn't sure, but I couldn't possibly have been more wrong. What had happened was there had been an assassination attempt on President Obote's life, and he had responded with maximum violence, bringing in the military, creating terror and havoc everywhere. And my brother and I spent the whole day lining up here, lining up there to get bus tickets to get out. And the next day we got on a bus. It shouldn't have taken more than maybe 12 hours maximum. It took us way more, 30 hours at least, because we were continually being stopped by the military. They were boarding the bus. These were men with rifles that were as big as they were. They were rifling through our bags and taking our belongings and terrorizing people and scaring people. And the third time they boarded the bus, they ordered us off. They put us in a semicircle and they proceeded to play Russian roulette with us, laughing at each person's fear as the rifle was pointed at them. And then the leader slowly brought his rifle back and pointed it at me and ordered me to go into the woods. And I was petrified, petrified. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, I couldn't think. I was frozen with terror. And I could hear my brother step forward and I could hear my brother say, "Don't you touch her, you'll be sorry," in broken Swahili. And he sowed just enough doubt that the guy kind of shrugged and ordered us back on the bus. And I tell this story because even now when I remember, I feel the terror. I tell this story because 100 million people have similar stories. 100 million people have been displaced by war and violence, have suffered unbelievable anguish and loss and fear. 100 million. And it's not just the individual stories, it's the families as well. This is Beria and Hisham and Judy and Cedra. They are the Syrian family that my family helped sponsor to come to Canada. And here you can see them in our backyard when they came up to Collingwood, Ontario for a visit. And that night, after the kids had gone to bed, Hisham started telling us about the story of how they came out of Damascus. And for weeks, he had been saying to Beria, "Beria, we've got to go, we've got to go." And she had been saying, "No, Hisham, no, our life is here. We have a wonderful life. My parents are here, my brothers and sisters, your family. No, we can't go." And then one night, the bombs fell on their street, and the entire family was huddled under the stairs into the basement. And Hisham was spreading his body over his wife and kids as if he could give them an extra layer of protection. And he says, "Beria, I'm begging you, please let me try and save the lives of our daughters." And she nodded her head. And the next day they got in their car, which by some miracle was still working, and they drove around the debris of their street and out of Damascus on a journey that was going to take them 2 years to end up in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. And this is a picture of their street, their beautiful middle-class street that was sent to them after they got to Canada. And you have to understand that in Syria, you don't sit down for dinner with your children. There's 3-4 generations at the dinner table. There's aunts and uncles and cousins. And here they were, ripped from the fabric of their family in Mississauga, Ontario. Now, Einstein says we can't solve a problem we don't recognize. And I know everyone in the audience today is aware of the problem. I know that. And I want to just talk about a couple of major wake-up calls for me. I had been involved in the peace movement peripherally, off and on, ever since my 20s, probably because of the experience I had in East Africa. And one day about 5 years ago, my husband and I sat down to listen to this grainy YouTube debate, poor quality, about whether war could ever be justified. And we went into this debate thinking, well, of course, war can be justified, right? The Second World War, we had to stand our ground with Hitler, right? I mean, of course. And by the end of the debate, I was so discombobulated. My conceptions, my preconceptions, my ideas about war, they were completely up for grabs. I didn't know what to think. And arguing that war could be justified was Lieutenant Pete Kilner, professor of ethics at the US Military Academy, himself a graduate from West Point. And arguing that war could not be justified was David Swanson, a co-founder of an organization called World Beyond War, that I at that time did not know anything about. And there were a few things from this debate that really stayed in our minds, galvanized us into action, and have had us working full-time now, 24/7 for peace. Now, these guys were both Americans. The debate was taking place in the United States, so there was an American focus. And there was one sentence that David Swanson said that is seared on our minds. He said, since World War II, the US alone has helped kill over 20 million people, overthrown at least 36 governments, interfered in at least 84 foreign elections, attempted to assassinate over 50 foreign leaders, dropped bombs on people in over 30 countries. I was floored, absolutely floored. I mean, my husband got a 3-ring binder and did the research, and we can point to websites that list all this. I was floored, absolutely staggered. I also did not know that since the United Nations pledged to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, there have been 250 major wars. I did not know that. And when the question was asked, which of these wars can be justified, which ones? The answer was very nebulous. And even if Lieutenant Pete Kilner had come up with one, I mean, he talked about the war in the Balkans, maybe, even if he'd been able to come up with one, what about the other 249? And again, I was just floored. Was it a just war in Afghanistan? Was it? Was it a just war in Iraq? I can still hear President Bush, shock and awe, 29,000 airstrikes in densely settled urban areas using cluster bombs, white phosphorus, depleted uranium, napalm, targeting water supplies, sewage treatment plants, hospitals, bridges, electrical utilities. Was that a just war? What about the war in Yemen? All our attention has gone to the war in Ukraine, which is terrible. But in the meantime, the greatest humanitarian disaster in the history of the UN is going on unabated in Yemen. And what about if we go back 30 years to the war in the Panama? And this is relevant because at the beginning of the pandemic, my husband and I were in Panama City, and I had watched the entire television coverage of the Panama invasion in 1989. So I knew a little bit about it. And I was learning that it had taken place in El Chorrillo, which was outside of Panama City, but where at the time the military had been located. And I wanted to go to El Chorrillo, but the concierge of our hotel adamantly would not help us, saying he could not guarantee our safety. This is 30 years ago, and he could not guarantee our safety. So we went to a friend on the street who very reluctantly agreed to take us, provided we slumped down in the car, and he said it was his safety he was worried about, not just ours. And so we slumped down in the car, and we were still taking it with a grain of salt. And we drove into El Chorrillo, and literally within 2 minutes, we saw this very large, very angry, very fresh mural on the wall. And for those of you who don't speak Spanish, this means never forget, never forgive. And we were thinking, oh my God, this happened 30 years ago, 30 years ago. What are we missing here? And what we were missing was the fact that 4,000 civilians died in the Panama invasion, most of them from El Chorrillo. And what we were missing was the sheer trauma that was inflicted on this community. There they were just a few days before Christmas, all excited about Christmas coming up, kids happy in their beds, and in the middle of the night, by air, by sea, by land. Imagine the terror, imagine the desperate need to protect the children, and they didn't know what it was all about. And people were found dead in their beds. There were people found with bullets in the back of their head. There were 2 people found fused to a car because some kind of new laser weapon was being tried out. And the families were evacuated from their homes. And then the soldiers systematically using walkie-talkie went from block to block, blowing the homes up and burning them to the ground. And all I could think was, how come I didn't know this? I watched the entire coverage on TV. How come I didn't know this? And so this is the problem, isn't it? This is the problem. We live in a state of perpetual war, and we never feel it. And I'm quoting Lee Camp here. While you get your gelato at the hip place where they put the cute little mint leaves on the side, someone is being bombed in your name. While you argue with the 17-year-old at the movie theater who gave you a small popcorn when you had paid for a large, someone is being obliterated in your name. While we sleep and eat and make love and shield our eyes on a sunny day, someone's home, family, life, and body are being blown into 1,000 pieces in our names. And it is in our names because our elected leaders are cooperating with this, and we have elected them. And so what did I do after watching that debate? I researched and fell in love with the message of World Beyond War. It wasn't about ending a particular war or use of a particular weapon or sanctions to a particular country. It was about turning around and looking at the institution of war itself and understanding the systems and the thinking and the structure that was allowing war to continue the way it was. And I joined Rotary International, the Rotary Action Group for Peace. Why Rotary? Because of the reach of Rotary. Peace is one of the foundational values of Rotary. And this is just a map that shows you all around the world, Rotarians doing various projects that are related to peace. Now, Einstein also said, more about the problem we don't recognize, because there is another piece to this. And I don't know whether we're all aware of the extent of it. And so if we just look at these old-fashioned scales, and on the left, we put, according to the UN, the $80 billion going into humanitarian efforts. And honestly, it could be twice that, it could be 3 times that, it could be 5 times that. It doesn't matter, because according to the Institute of Economics and Peace, which publishes annually the Global Peace Index, the worldwide impact of war and the preparations for war has now reached $5.9 trillion. This is a number too large to put in your calculator. 0.1% of this number could feed the entire planet. A fraction of a percent could educate everyone in North America to the level of education that they would like. But it's not going there, it's going into war and the preparations for war. Now, I have a degree in physics, but you don't have to have a degree in physics to know which way these scales are going. It's just gravity. And it's not rocket science to know that we're not going to be able to save our planet unless we get some of that money shifted from militarism to peace and to the positive peace endeavors that so many of us are trying to do. And that's not going to happen as long as we continue to tolerate, even cooperate with war. So Einstein also said no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So let's just take a look. Let's just take a moment and look at the current level of consciousness around war and peace that is on the planet today. And don't we always hear this? Isn't this kind of the thoughts that go through our heads? Oh, you know, war is inevitable. We've always had it. We always will. War is necessary. Remember me thinking, yeah, you have to draw a line in the sand sometimes. War is necessary. War is human nature. It's not pleasant, but it's true. Let's just face it. And besides, the industrial, military, political, media complex is just way too powerful. We don't stand a chance. But if we stop and look at these so common beliefs that are out there that people think when asked about war, we know, we learn, conflict may be inevitable, but war is a choice that our governments make in the same way they decide whether they're going to give us healthcare or invest in an infrastructure project. War is a choice. And as for war being necessary, I could believe that at the end of the Second World War. I could understand why people thought that. But since then, we have learned so much. We have the examples of Gandhi and Martin Luther King. You can get a PhD now in conflict resolution. None of this information was available at the end of the Second World War. And research shows that the defense of life, freedom, and democracy is better accomplished non-violently, twice as likely to be successful, twice as likely to last, and without the death and destruction that comes from violent resistance. And as for war being human nature, come on, China went 500 years without a war. Were they not human? Costa Rica abolished its military. Were they not human? There is nothing that could convince me and probably most of you to go to war. Are we not human? And finally, the industrial military complex. When enough people understand that this is not making us safer, everybody thinks that a strong military is making them safer. It is not making us safer. And when people understand that war is a #1 contributor to the climate crisis, most people haven't made the link between war and the climate crisis. When enough people understand, the political support for the industrial military complex will disappear and their power will diminish. So if these aren't the reasons why we still have war, 75 years later, why do we still have war? And John Horgan and many others did exhaustive research using the scientific method for any possible correlation to war, and they found only one. Wars are made by cultures that celebrate or tolerate war. Period. And we all of us, are living in a culture. In peaceful Canada, one of the 10 most peaceful countries on the world, top 15 actually, am living in a culture that tolerates war. And we can think of it like this. The 250 wars since World War II are the tip of the iceberg, but the culture that we're living in, the oxygen that we're breathing, is so much broader and deeper and exists continually. And it's in our heads and our books and our historical markers and our monuments and our sporting events. It's everywhere. And it really takes, Barbara was talking about courage over comfort. It really takes conviction to think outside the prevailing culture that we live in. So Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the level of consciousness that created it, which makes me want to ask all of us, okay, so how does consciousness evolve? And I'm so interested in this. How do cultures shift and change? How does consciousness evolve? And we've come to understand that there's a tipping point. When enough people tune in to a new awareness, the consciousness shifts, and that awareness is picked up by almost everyone. And we know intuitively that this is true. If we think about it, for example, the Berlin Wall was up for decades. It came down on a weekend. Why? Consciousness shifted. Or foot binding in China existed for hundreds of years. It was ended in a generation. Why? Consciousness shifted. Or look at the women's movement. I was part of the women's movement in the 70s. It was exhilarating, as if I was lifting a veil from my eyes and seeing myself for who I really was. It was exhilarating. And we all know the world today is completely different for our daughters than it was for our mothers. Why? Consciousness shifted. But if you don't want to believe me intuitively that we know this is true, let's go to Dr. Erica Chenoweth, professor at Harvard, who asked the question, what percent of a population must change its thinking and behavior? That's the key, and behavior, to shift the entire population. And you may be thinking, I don't know, 80%, certainly 51%. What do you think? And you're going to be blown away by the answer. It's 3.5%. 3.5%. And so I say, when 3.5% of us develop a higher level of peace consciousness and act accordingly, our culture will shift. So how do we do that? Well, number one, we have to think outside the prevailing narratives. We have to question them. And I'll just use me as an example and the Panama invasion. How come I didn't know? And after Dave and I came back from Panama, we watched a documentary called The Panama Deception. I highly recommend it. And what it concluded was that television had sold the Panama invasion. The television anchors had talked as if they were part of the force. We had a good day today. Our troops are doing well. There was no mention, not one, of the dead civilians. There was no questioning of the reason for the invasion. Really? Because Noriega was a drug trafficker? Really? And my personal favorite, one night on the NBC Nightly News, the US military occupiers were described as engaged in peacekeeping chores. You saw the pictures, peacekeeping chores. And a minute later, the Latin American diplomats who had condemned the invasion were described as a lynch mob. Now, I don't think our television anchors were consciously trying to sell us on the Panama invasion. Not at all. I think they were given information which they took to be true and complete, and they passed it on to me, and I took it to be true and complete. Not at all. But it wasn't. And the same thing applies to the war in Ukraine. Here's the prevailing narrative. Putin is an insatiable expansionist. It was completely unprovoked, no plausible, legitimate security concern whatsoever. And then the Hitler comparison. So that those of us that would like negotiation are now appeasers. And there's just so much alternative information out there, so much. I read this book. It only took me maybe 2 hours to read this book, this excellent book. And more recently, a new one has come out by Medea Benjamin, Making Sense of a Senseless Conflict. And the simple fact is, there was a 30-year history of NATO provocations towards Russia. And so to suggest that it was unprovoked is not accurate. Now, I'm not trying to excuse Putin invading Ukraine. That was an incredibly violent reaction that he took, in the same way that President Obote in Uganda reacted so violently to the actions of what turned out to be one person. So I'm not doing that. I'm just saying there's a lot more than the prevailing Western narrative would suggest. And it's Ukraine that's paying the price. So, second step of many, but recognize what really makes us safe. And I know those of us who are involved with the UN are already familiar with the difference between the national security model and the human security model. And many people do not recognize, because we still think that having a strong military is necessary to keep us safe. So we don't recognize that this idea of a military drawing a border around the country and protecting it with military might, we don't recognize that it's obsolete. How good was our strong military when COVID hit? Surely COVID taught us how interconnected a world we live in today, and that we can't keep out ideas and immigrants and economic forces with a strong military. And in fact, as you know, I think the United Nations model, what they are advocating is common or human security focused on sustainable development and environmental justice and the recognition of how connected we all are. And so we want to make the shift in our thinking to what truly makes us safe. And finally, collaborate and synergize, collaborate and synergize. It was John F. Kennedy who said, there is no simple key to peace. It is the product of many nations, the sum of many acts, a process, a way of solving problems. And so the latest collaboration that I've been involved with are the two organizations in which I am a member, World Beyond War, where I'm a chapter coordinator, and the Rotary Action Group for Peace, where I'm on the board of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And we have collaborated to create a course called Ending War 101. It's only 6 hours. It's conversational. It's engaging. It's based because we know that we need to raise consciousness. It's really at its core, a consciousness raising experience based on 4 questions. Can war be ended? Is a just war even possible? What does tolerating war cost us? And what can we do? So Einstein also said, what does a fish know of the water in which he swims? And I mention this only to say that people who have been working their entire lives in the military or related kinds of fields don't have the perspective perhaps that we do on shore. And it's not just people who've been working in the military. I had a conversation with the head of the Rideau Institute in Canada. This is an incredible, all of the who's who of Canadian peace advocates are on the board of the Rideau Institute. And we invited her to speak at a World Beyond War conference. And she agreed to speak, but she said, I want to be very clear with you. I believe there is a place for war. There are times when war is necessary. And I had a similar conversation. Many of you may be familiar with the Global Security Institute, with a lawyer at the Global Security Institute, advocates for cooperation and security based on the rule of law, advocates for human security over state security. And he said, I believe there is a place for war. And so it's this very belief. Maybe the last 250 wars weren't justified, but what about the next war? Maybe we need our really strong military for the next war. It's this very belief that keeps war alive. And so I come back to my question at the beginning, pipe dream or possibility? What do you think? And I like to end with this slide by Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. And I'm also putting up the QR code for our Ending War 101 course. We think it's wonderful. We had 270 people enrolled in it the first time we offered it. We're going to offer it every 2 months on a rolling basis. And the next course begins on September 4th. So if you're interested and have 6 hours that you could commit to this, please register. You can just take a screen copy to get the QR code, or you could pull out your phones and actually take a picture. But a screen copy is enough.
Don't take it down, because
Okay.
you just go to Command-Shift-3 on your computer, and you will have a screenshot that you can then focus your iPhone on in order to find out more about the 6-hour online course from Helen Peacock. And I'm going to do it right now. Command-Shift.
And I should say that we feel that we're part of building a movement of people who are committed, who are clear that war is a choice and we can make different choices. And as we build the movement and collaborate with more and more organizations, hopefully the movement will get larger and larger and larger. So that is our purpose with this course.
Oh, Helen Peacock, you have opened up my eyes, and I've taken the course, but I had not seen your PowerPoint. And this PowerPoint kind of summarizes what you're going to learn in the course. And it does take courage over comfort to see some of the videos that are in this course, as well as some of the reading. And so, Helen, today you did something which I really value. You came from your own personal experience. I just can't imagine you standing there in Uganda and not being so scared that you didn't faint. These are the things that make us peacemakers. We become peace builders when we've experienced the horrors of war, or you've seen the horrors of war. And so with that, Helen, I'm going to open up to questions and go back to gallery view. There may be a question or two if we're not just too stunned to believe that we have been in the world where we have tolerated war. Every time I go to Los Angeles and I see the miles of gravestones of war fighters, and I think they gave their lives. And the Reader's Digest has an article in the last issue bringing home the bones of their son. They should have been bringing home their son, not their bones. And so with that, I'm opening it up for questions. If you have a question, just unmute yourself. And I'd like you to meet two of my newest friends, Alex and Michelle, who you will begin to realize this is people who have been against war and who have started a Rotary Club for Gen X. It's the Gen X people who today need our help and our wisdom. And with that, if you have a question, you'd like to say something to Helen, please just open up your mouth, take your mute off, and you may say something or raise your hand one way or the other.
I would like to comment on Helen's speech. Helen, it's a great speech. I mean, we learned a lot. But the one thing that war is the choice, I am gonna probably question that because I lived in the war for 6 years and I carried my AK-47 and fought in the civil war in Lebanon, and we were dragged into that war. Maybe it's a choice on one side, not on two sides. You know, so maybe, but in a world like ours nowadays, and with all the minerals and all the demand of the countries and the needness of the countries and the migration of the people, I think wars are imminent because of the needness of new sources and resources. And that's probably never gonna stop, but we can make, and I said it earlier, we can make a choice probably or make awareness about not having war. But, you know, with the population of the world just went over 8 billion people about 7 months ago. Resources are the main source of wars nowadays, besides political agendas of people or countries to have those wars and those countries and unrest, civil, so you can have a blind eye about the real thing, but the real thing is just draining those countries out of resources. And we see it right now happening in Africa. We see it in South America and Chile. We see it in many countries that are rich of the new demand for the new energy. So I'm not sure if how I can put it, but I think some of it is a choice for one side, not the other.
Thank you, Shab. Helen?
Shab, could I invite you to take the September course?
The one thing that I remember in the September course, I've taken this twice because I love the videos. And the videos show Martin Luther King saying, I, in good conscience, could not support the Vietnam War. And I, in good conscience, could not be quiet. So I don't think we're saying that, Shab, that you need to go and stand on a street corner and say war no more. What we're doing is we're starting with awareness of what war is costing us, the information that you need, that we all need, the persuasion to do something, the persuasion to change your own mind and what your thoughts are. I remember speaking with my husband, who was the UN Assistant Secretary General, and this man says, "What can you do? I'm not at the UN." And my husband said, "What are you thinking right now?"
Can I also just add something, Shab? Having experienced a few conflicts myself, that there are so many things that we can be doing in the global north. And I heard one presentation where the presenter said, if we color the planet red for every part that's experiencing war, and we color the planet blue for every part that is manufacturing armaments, there would be almost no overlap. And so we have a responsibility to stop participating in the international arms trade. I mean, we have examples of arming both sides in a civil war. And that would make a huge difference, I think, in shifting our planet. The other comment I wanted to make is that I've trained in NLP as well, neuro-linguistic programming, and we know that people make the best choice of the choices available to them in the moment. And so for people who may still be, for leaders who may still be choosing war, they're not aware, they don't know that there could be other options. And if we recognize what it is to raise peace consciousness on the planet, those options will become more apparent. As I said before, we have the examples of Gandhi, we have the examples of Martin Luther King. We can get a PhD in conflict resolution. We have learned an incredible amount about mediation. There's nonviolent communication out there. The world is completely different now than 75 years ago. And so all of these tools can be coming to the fore more and more as we work to stop participating or enabling war. Was that helpful?
It's
Yes.
helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shab.
You're awesome. Thank you very much.
Alex and Michelle, please. You're still muted. All right, can't hear you, Alex. I don't know. Now you have to unmute. Yeah. Unmute still. You're still muted. Okay. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. No, thank you, Helen, for the amazing presentation. And thank you, Barbara, for mentioning the focus on the Gen Z that and millennials that we're looking at, because this new generation thinks very much different than we do. Now, the idea of having this perpetual peace is not new, right? We've been fighting for this for many generations. That's why we had the League of Nations, and has been an ultimate goal. But I think I also like to look at it from a very pragmatic perspective. Peace to me is not the same thing that peace to somebody else means, right? So if we just focus on peace, and I like the fact that you focused on conflict resolution, because I think that's more accurate. We can make a change for each individual conflict if we can bring them to the negotiation table and find a resolution to a conflict. When you talk about peace, you have to realize that peace is the failure of diplomacy, right? So you have two sides that have failed to reach an agreement. They think that they're going to achieve their ends by going to war. But when you talk about conflict resolution, both sides lose. Both sides win, but both sides also lose, right? Because you have to find that middle ground. And that means that both sides are really not going to be at peace, because each side sees peace as the other side giving up and agreeing to all of their demands. So how do you define peace in this, and how do you approach it in this course? I don't know if I'm making sense at all with what I'm trying to say.
You are, and you're talking about a sort of prevailing belief that we live in we're playing a zero-sum game. For me to win, you have to lose. What were the lyrics from the John Denver song? Who's to say you have to lose for someone else to win? I don't know whether you're familiar with the song. And I don't believe that we live in a zero-sum world. I don't. And if you study something like nonviolent communication, it explains that we have ways in which we can be understanding each other's needs and come up with solutions so that we're not meeting our needs at the expense of another person. That this is indeed a way in which we can be communicating. So the idea of a zero-sum game, we saw with COVID, we saw how interconnected our world was. And we saw how the countries of the world had to come together as best they could to cooperate in ending the COVID epidemic. We saw that happen. And we can be doing that more and more with these kinds of conflicts. So I don't know whether, is there more to your question?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with what,
sorry, Alex.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, I absolutely agree that this shouldn't be a zero-sum game, right? But my question to you, it's how do you define peace, right? So what is the end state? Obviously, the end state, it would be no conflict, right?
Yeah.
But how do you define peace from all perspectives, and how do you appease everybody involved in this process in order to achieve real peace?
So I'm not defining it as no conflict at all. I think conflict is inevitable. And I think resolving conflict can lead to something even better if we work together to resolve it productively. I'm defining peace as the absence of the use of war as a means of resolving conflict. And let me give you an example. I mean, we've eliminated institutionalized slavery in today's world. Would you agree? I mean, there's still examples, but basically as an institution, we've made it illegal, and we would be horrified if we learned of it happening. Now, 200 years ago, slavery was the engine of the economic empire in Great Britain. It depended entirely on slavery, and the House of Lords made their money from slave plantations in the Caribbean. And the very thought of ending slavery was like a joke. You must be insane. You must be nuts to think that we could end slavery. And if we did end slavery, France would just take over and make all the profits. We can't end slavery. And a group of 12 men originally formed the Society for the Abolition of the Slave Trade. And 20 years later, the law to abolish the slave trade was passed. Now, it took a while to actually eliminate slavery itself, but we have a lot to learn from that, because the parallels to war are really profound. So I'm defining peace as the absence of the choice of war as a means of resolving conflict, not as the absence of conflict. And I think that conflict can be very productive. And when we put different people together in a room with different agendas, there's a lot of talking that has to happen.
Thank you, Alex. And I see a hand, please.
Oh,
Yeah.
hi. Yeah, I'm Denny Boydson. I'm from Davis. I've been studying that problem for quite a while. I was in Vietnam War. And what I think we need most is a better form of democracy. We need to institute direct citizen democracy at the neighborhood level to empower the people to take control of their governments, to steer their governments to honesty. The town meeting, the neighborhood town meeting should become the foundation of all governments everywhere around the world. And until we can achieve this, then we're going to have a conflict. And another aspect is I've been working on a conflict resolution workshop method, which would be an online method that could also be used physically to talk about our problems and make our accusations and reply to the other person's accusations and get it all out into the open where it's all there and shown rather than being hidden. Like our government always hides, what our evil deeds, we don't ever admit them, but we have to have a conflict resolution method, which is practiced worldwide, where everybody has to admit it. And then once you admit it, then how about you? The other guys admit yours. So this is a method I'm working on. And I was wondering if maybe we could get together. Could I show you the concept paper that I have? It's got a long ways to go yet. It's nowhere near being completed.
But this is a beginning of a conversation, Denny, and I would love you to put your email in the chat so that we can have a meeting. I've been thinking, we have these meetings and they're so structured and they're so organized and they're so wonderful, but maybe we need to just have a half-hour conversation now and then about what we're learning and so that we can talk. And I see a hand, and so with that, Nicola. Hi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicola. I am from the UNA Los Angeles chapter. First off, I wanted to thank you for the amazing presentation, Helen. And I believe Dennis was the person who was speaking before me. Dennis, amazing. I agree 100% with what you said. There's empirical evidence that's backing what you're saying regarding direct democracy. And I think this comes down to a granular level as to how we're brought up to learn how to compete rather than to cooperate. And it's embedded in our educational institutions since we're very young. And instead of using the word or, we have to teach our future generations to use the word and. And this concept of the zero-sum game, I've seen it too many times, right? And even people, that are like-minded like us, they say, oh yeah, no, I don't believe in a zero-sum game, but it's palpable. You see people are still trying to save themselves, right? Their ulterior motives might be different, but really training, reprogramming our future generations, our kids, to think about cooperating rather than competing to reach the same target, I think is where the money is. And I love the program that you guys launched on peace. I think it's amazing. And I think as Dennis begins to, and as we begin to synthesize all these ideas, I think something important is to also think about how we want to break that intergenerational, that intergenerational divide of conscientiousness, right? And begin these next generations, prepare them mentally to have that mindset. That way, when we begin to launch direct democracy, it's not going to bite us in the A, right? We're going to be prepared to make informed decisions.
Yeah, the town meetings I'm speaking of, they need to follow a certain methodology, meeting method. It's called Technology of Participation. TOP is the address. Technology of Participation. This was developed by the Institute of Cultural Affairs in Chicago during the 1950s to get to be this format for building world peace.
So could I, sorry, Denny.
Go ahead.
I was actually trained by the Institute of Cultural Affairs in facilitation methods. I mean, their methods are fantastic. I still have their books here. I totally agree. And I wanted to just, I wanted to just show you, this is a book by David Adams. Do you know David Adams, Denny?
No, I don't.
Okay, so he wrote a little book called I Have Seen the Promised Land. He's fantastic peace activist connected with the United Nations. And he wrote, I won't go into the details of the book, but the world of the future in which war is not used is very definitely a world of the city states, for lack of a better way of putting it, of local, not state democracies.
Mhm.
And he speaks to exactly what you're talking about.
You know, this is a very powerful conversation. And I realize that when we start these conversations, we all have a mindset. And I have realized, as I have been working in peace since I was 3 years old, because my grandfather immigrated from Hungary to avoid World War I, that working for peace means a kind of a thought. You're always thinking peace. There's you just keep thinking peace. What can I do to bring peace to this situation? And even when I was a little girl, I was bringing peace to my family, to my 2 sisters, to my mom, to my dad, because my grandfather, when I was 3, said I was going to be a peace builder, a peacemaker. I don't know what he all said. And I said, Grandpa, I'm only 3. Well, how am I going to be that? And he said, you'll figure it out. And so I just kept having the word peace in my mind. And that word peace is very hard to describe, but it's an attitude that allows you to think first before you shoot, for want of a better example, to think first before you shout. In fact, I wrote the book, Revolutionary Conversations. And the revolutionary conversation is every conversation can lead to peace, but it has to start with the word stop. Just like at a stop sign at a street, you don't go forward until it's safe. I learned that just 2 days ago. I'm driving down the street, a peace in my brain. And this teen, I don't want to say anything bad about teenagers, pulls out right in front of me and bumps into me. And he said, whoops, I should have stopped. And I thought, yeah, you should have stopped. But that's the word, stop before you go forward. And so with that, we just stop and we don't go forward and think of what can I do to bring peace. And is your hand up again, Nicola?
Yes, it is. I just wanted to mention one last thing. I previously worked for a blockchain protocol, and I'm not sure what technologies you guys have learned to implement direct democracy and these kind of systems to promote peace and set the right incentive parameters and systems for democracy. But I would love to be involved in, in any way, shape, and form, permissionless, trustless systems where every individual has the same vote, I think is the future, and the technology's here. And in the LA chapter, we're actually we began looking for people that might be interested in implementing that even on a municipal level, right? To get a pulse of what people want in terms of sustainability projects. So absolutely, I'm super excited.
That's why we love you, because you tell us what we can do. You know, rather than, this maybe, there's no more maybes, we can, with technology today, create a world that's going to work for all of us. God bless you. Don't you leave without giving me your email. You're on my team. All of you, be sure you put your emails into the chat. Now, if you don't save the chat, that's your fault, because all you do is you go down and click on those 3 little dots. And then it says save chat. And when we can finish our meeting, the chat will be saved. And I even sent most of you the invitation to the Tuesday meeting that our wonderful president of our UNASB invited you to. And I will keep you posted. I'll send you this video. And Alex, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, no, thank you. I wanted to say absolutely, completely agreed with what Nicola said. And this is one of the reasons why I love working with the Gen Z generation. For the first time, it's like, I'm a war veteran too. I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and for the first time, I see that there's actually potential for peace when I see the newer generation, and especially like you mentioned, blockchain. A lot of it has to do with transparency. When you force governments to be transparent, and this is what blockchain is going to do, then it's really hard to fool a people. into going to war for the wrong reason. So I am so amazed and happy that that you mentioned that, Nicola, because I'm fully on board and fully agree with that.
Alex, yes. You know, for me, it's very interesting because finally, right at the end of the day, it comes down to checks and balances, right? Like, don't tell me, show me. Where's the money going? Where are we allocating our resources? If that's gonna tell us like where we're focusing our attention, our focus, that's what's gonna show like what matters to us. And right now, what matters to us is senseless spending on arms that is serving our people nothing, right? It's just defending, you know, hegemonic structures, right? Global geopolitics, power struggles, and we're way beyond that. And our generation
Absolutely.
are looking at the world borderless. So yes, excited to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, no, thank you again.
Alex, I love you and Michelle. I had the most amazing conversation with Michelle, and Michelle is homeschooling Victor. Is that his name, Victor? And Victor got on the call, and I said, Victor, I was so in love with Victor because he believed, like I believe, that anything is possible when we get our mind around peace. There he is. Hi, Victor. We're all glad you were born. You're an angel from heaven. So with that, you have to begin with yourself. Helen has showed us how she was scared out of her wits and how that transformed her. But then she got information from David Swanson, World Beyond War. And she saw she wasn't alone. And then she coalesced me and 4 or 5 others to join on Ending War 101. And it's not easy because a lot of people have seen the devastation of war. Maybe they've even been in the war, as you know, and then they just feel like the world hasn't treated them fairly. And so that's our job, to treat people fairly with kindness and love. And with that, I say, thank you for today's meeting. I have more energy now than when I started because I see I have a bunch of friends, a lot of friends, and we have to keep working together. I have a movie called On the Edge. It's with Ted Turner. It's with Mikhail Gorbachev. It's with my late husband, Robert Mueller. And I'm thinking I'm going to have a movie night, and I'm going to invite you all to see what they said about what we think our future can be. Now, we have modern day heroes, but the Carl Sagans of the world are no longer here. And he's in this movie. And so I may be doing that, and I'll keep you posted. And if you don't think I have your email, please put it in the chat because I will save it. And again, I give you all a round of applause. Helen Peacock, you are amazing. The way you brought in facts and not fiction. You brought in the facts. And it's not easy to do that. It's not easy to not be emotional when you see the devastation that war causes. And there's just so much we can do, but there's also a lot standing in our way, as Shab said. Shab was telling me he was in Lebanon and he went to bed as a teenager with a gun by his pillow. He knows what it's like to be scared. And so with that, I'm not going to scare you. I'm going to thank you. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for hearing and not saying, oh no, I can't take it. Thank you. Thank you, Shab. Shab is one of my heroes because Shab can get money for things that you think need to be done. Don't hesitate to call Shab. Shab is amazing when it comes to getting global grants. You all have Rotary clubs because there's 44,000 of them around the world. Go to your Rotary club or join my Rotary E-Club of World Peace for $20 a month. You can be a Rotarian. Wow. So that's only $20 a month and you can join the Rotary E-Club. But if you're like Nicola, then you join Alex's. Guess how much his is a month? $10 a month. There's the bargain of the day. And they are international. You're not only going to see Alex and his beautiful wife and Victor, you're going to see people from all over the world in that beautiful E-Club. So with that, thank you, thank you, thank you. Join every time I send you an email. Pay attention because we are the future that our world needs. May peace be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
With that, Barbara,
Barbara.
I just have an announcement. Heard somebody talking about Cambodia. We just sent 50 artificial arms, prosthetic arms to Cambodia and 50 to Ukraine with Marsha. But I still have 150 artificial arm, prosthetic arms for any of our group that they think somewhere in the world, you know, the kids or on bicycles or motorcycles that they lost their arm, we can provide them with one for free.
Oh,
I have
Shad,
150 of those ready to be shipped anywhere. So you can take the call and call me, and I'll be more than happy to arrange for that.
thank you,
Thank
Shad. That's a very generous gift, and I'm praying that in 10 years, we don't need to give people prosthetic arms, because I think we're going to put down the arms of military. God bless us all.
Thank you.